Hi, welcome back to another video. Alright, so the other day I had made a video and I had expressed something to the fact that Paul had written in the New Testament about how it was, we were saved by faith in Christ alone, and I had mentioned that in the book of James there was in chapter 2 of James there's a section in there where it talks about faith and deeds, and how it talks about how deeds are equally important to faith, otherwise your faith means nothing. And I had mentioned in that video that this was one of the issues that the founder of the Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther, he had issue with the book of James and felt that it shouldn't be in the New Testament Bible for this very reason. And I wanted to take a moment now just to substantiate my claim so people wouldn't think that I was just blowing smoke here, that it actually is. So if you want to look it up for yourself, it is the second chapter of the book of James, and it's under the faith and deeds section. And if you want to read it in its entirety, you can. I'm just going to read the section that I think really encapsulates what I'm talking about. And so it basically starts off with verse 22, and in verse 22, basically it says, "You see that his faith and his actions were working together." I know it's dangerous when you're driving, but working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. And then it says down in verse 24, "You see that a person is justified by what he does and not by faith alone." So now I'm not sure that you can read that any other way than face value, than the way that it's written. I mean, if he says that you're justified by what you do and not by faith alone, I mean, what was James talking about? Is there anything else that he could have been talking about? Is there any other way we can, pardon the expression, but skin this cat? I mean, is there? I just can't see that you can read that any other way than that he's talking about it takes more than just having faith in Christ alone to please God, or to do what you're supposed to do. So again, that's verse 22 and 24, and if you read the entire thing, I mean, it's in context with what we're talking about here. It's basically saying that deeds are equally important. You say, well, is that what he's really saying, or are you just putting where at? Well, I'm saying whether he's saying that or not, whether James is saying that or not saying that, at a minimum, we can conclude that he's saying that it takes more than something besides just faith in Christ alone. Because it says that you see that a person is justified by what he does and not by faith alone. So does it mean that you need faith alone in something else? Does it mean that your faith alone is nothing? I mean, I think that what he means is it's just having faith is not enough. So it brings me back to my initial point, which was, if this whole Jesus thing is supposed to work as Paul says it is, which Paul says you're saved by faith alone. If you read throughout his message, that's what he says. He doesn't talk about deeds. He doesn't say that's required. And actually, he speaks to the contrary. So, I mean, who got it wrong? Did Paul get it wrong? Did James get it wrong? I mean, is it just the whole thing is wrong? I mean, you say, well, maybe nobody's wrong. Maybe you're just misreading it. Maybe you're misinterpreting the scriptures. I mean, that's pretty blatantly straightforward to me. I mean, if you come up with another way of explaining this passage, please let me know. But to me, that says what it says, and we're not manipulating, we're not twisting the text in any way, in any shape, form, or fashion. It's straightforward. And so I think if you read that, you'll see what I'm talking about. And so you say, well, it's really an apparent contradiction. It's really not at odds with what Paul teaches. It's still consistent. Well, let's ask the question then. if there's no contradiction, if there's no issue, then why was Martin Luther having an issue with it? And he's the founder of Protestantism. You say, well, that's your assertion. I mean, we don't really know that what you're saying is true. Okay, well, go to Wikipedia, go to Google it, and see what issue that Martin Luther had with the book of James. And you'll find it, and you'll see that, oh, it's not really just me saying it. It's a bunch of other well-known, well-educated scholars saying that, yeah, this is what, it's an uncontested fact that Martin Luther took issue with it. So I'm just saying, if he's taken issue with it, and it's pointed out by other scholars, I mean, you got to do something with this. And of course, I would expect nothing less from Christians than to come up with, a harmonization. So you say, oh, well, because you find one passage or what? Well, obviously, like I said, if it was a big enough issue for Martin Luther, who had issues with the Catholic Church and their indulgences, and wrote the 95 Theses, I mean, come on. What? It was obviously important enough for him, and he's the founder of today's modern Protestantism. Then it must have been, if it's an issue for him, he's got obviously a lot more credibility than I do, and it's documented that he had issues with it, then it must be an issue then. So I say, what are you supposed to do with this? What are you supposed to do with this issue of, the book of James, the writer of James, saying, look, it takes more than faith in Christ alone. It takes deeds. It takes works. And that's in contradiction to what Paul teaches. So why would this be in the New Testament if it doesn't, if it's clearly an issue? Why does it show up? So I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. Is this like oh my God, this is a major catastrophic, damn, everything in the Bible is just not true? No, I'm not saying, but I think if you get enough of these things, which I will begin to present more and more of them to you as time permits, I'll begin to break down the issues of, why is it that Paul is teaching things that are contrary to what Jesus teaches? You say, well, how do you know that? We know that because we look at the New Testament Gospels. We look at what Jesus says. How Jesus was almost pretty much a Torah-abiding, believed in Jewish law and was consistent with it and didn't speak out against it, up to a certain point. And Paul's saying, oh no, forget the law, it's not important. When Jesus is like, hey, stick with what we have and stick with the, yeah, he said some other radical things, but clearly Paul is at odds with Jesus, but yet he got his message from Jesus. So those are the types of things that I want to explore and present in future videos and point out where, I guess you could call it a gotcha moment, where it's like, hey, here's something that Paul is saying, and read it in context, and then here's something that Jesus is saying. I mean, again, I wouldn't be talking about this stuff if I didn't think there was actually some substance to it. If I hadn't actually taken the time and researched it to myself, I mean, I wouldn't waste your time and waste my time making a video on something that just was unfounded and there was no substance to it whatsoever. Because it'd be pretty ballsy of me to get up here and just start, spouting out these harebrained ideas and things that were, on the fringe, and people be like, oh, he's a loon, he's gone crazy, Where's he getting these ideas from? The stuff is all in there. It's all in the Bible. I'm not making this stuff up, and you've got to do something with it. And what most Christians do is harmonize it away. They try to explain it away and pretend like it's not really there and it doesn't exist. And like I said, I can't do that anymore. I'm not willing to do that. I'm going to be intellectually honest with myself and stick with what I see and call it as I see it, and the way other more well-educated scholars see it. And again, you do what you want with it, but I think it's quite compelling when you read in the book of James that he's saying deeds are required in addition to just having faith alone. So if that's not what he's saying, please present me with another take on this, because I don't think you can read it any other way than plainly as it is written. So thanks for checking out this video, and I hope you look forward to the future ones. I got many more in store, and lots more topics to discuss and present to you, and we'll see you next time.